In today's video, we will be looking at the Thermaltake Core V1 ITX case. Now this case isn't actually sold in retail shops anymore or online. It's a little bit of an older case, probably about 3 to 4 years old now, maybe even a little bit more than that. But I think it's a really nice ITX case. So like I said in the previous video, we have an ITX board for AM4 Ryzen now. So we will be putting a Ryzen 3600 build together in this case. So obviously subscribe to see that. But today we'll be looking at this case, just a little overview. We'll go through its features. And I purchased this, like I say, a few years ago to do an ITX build with a Intel Core i5 Gen 4 CPU. I think it was like the 4560 or something like that. I can't quite remember, but it was an okay sort of little build, and I put a 750 Ti actually in here as well. But I've taken that all out now because it's a little bit dated now, that hardware, but it would still be okay, but it's a little bit dated. But let's, like I say, without further ado, let's just crack on with this case and see what it's all about. So first thing I want to kind of cover is the front here, and I'll have close-ups as we go along, but the front here actually comes, although you probably can't see it, with a 200mm fan at the front, which is a massive fan, and also the front is actually perforated as well, so that's actually going to let a fair amount of air through. And as well, with the 200mm fan in a small case like this, it's really going to have a lot of airflow, which is a really big positive. So let's see that fan now. Pull from the bottom here, and then it just slides off like that. As you can see here, there is like a little bit of sort of mesh behind there, so that's quite nice. It should be able to be fairly easy to clean, so that shouldn't be too bad. But we'll just put that to the side now, and obviously, as you can see here, the big 200mm fan is just here. So that, when that's spinning, that is going to create so much airflow for you. So that's a really big positive of the case, and probably the main reason why it was actually built, I would say, was for the 200mm fan. Obviously, it's no RGB, but sort of 3, 4, 5 years back, it was kind of not really a big thing, RGB. It's only kind of really come in maybe the last 2-3 years, RGB. But if we look at the side here, we've got the controls here, which again, I think it's a nice feature, because they could have put it on one of these panels, and then when you take off the panel, obviously then you wouldn't get your I/O, and it'd be a bit awkward because you'd have it like cables coming out and what have you. But to actually have it integrated into the side here is actually really nice. So big power button, big clicky power buttons, nice. 2 USB 3 ports, so again that's really nice, especially with a little bit of an older case. To actually see that was quite nice. A reset button and your headphone microphone jack, so pretty standard I/O there. Let's move on now to, basically this case has 3 kind of main panels on each sort of top and the 2 sides. So all these 3 panels are actually interchangeable as well, which is really good, and one of them actually comes with a window, although the window is acrylic rather than a tempered glass window that we're more used to. So a little bit of a downside there, but it's still nice. I mean, personally, I would have it this side, the window, so you can actually see your graphics card, but some people like it on top so they can see their motherboard. I mean, you could even put it onto the other side here, but then there's not really much happening this side, so I don't think you'd really want to do that. I think they did actually sell a version which didn't actually have the window as well, but I'm not sure about that. I can't remember, but I did get the window version, and I think it looks okay. I mean, if you put your graphics card right there in front of it, you're going to have a decent view at your window there. But let's take off these side panels now. So again, it's all thumb screwed, which is nice. Like I said, that was the window one. It's a really nice little tiny panel. I mean, there's not much. Again, the case isn't that big, but it's nice and tiny. So yeah, let's just get all 3 of them off here. So taking a little bit more of a look inside the case, we can see first of all we have 2 drive caddies here, which can actually take 2 3.5-inch drives or 2 2.5-inch drives, or a mixture between 1 3.5 and 1 2.5. So really nice flexibility here. They just sort of stand at the front here, and then you just connect your wires in from there. And then the main motherboard area is just here. We obviously have cables wise quite, you know, pretty standard as we'd expect. The 200mm fan is only a 3-pin fan, which might be a little bit of a problem because it might run at full whack all the time. But that could be controlled in most motherboards nowadays, can actually control that, even with the 3-pin. And actually a 200mm fan isn't very loud at all. It actually runs fairly slow as well, so it's not going to create too much noise. I wouldn't worry about that. We have our front audio, obviously a standard, all our little like front panel headers, like the I/O power buttons and what have you, so that's all standard, and USB 3 front header as well, obviously, so it's all standard there. Like I say, this is only ITX, so obviously only ITX boards will come into here, and I would probably say in terms of tower coolers, I'll put it below of how big the tower cooler you can have. I think it's probably about 17 centimeters you can fit in for a tower cooler, which is actually okay, and for most tower coolers that's going to be perfect CPU clearance. So the actual clearance from the motherboard tray up to the top isn't really a problem, and then the power supply actually just fits in below here. But it's a bit of an odd one here to actually for the power supply when you're installing it, because basically what you have to do is you basically have to take off this panel here. And actually, before we go further, there's actually a dust filter as well on the panel. So that comes apart from there. Just a little tiny one, but it's something. So you don't have any dust coming through into your power supply. So that's nice. So yeah, again, it's just a little panel with obviously 4 feet there, and then you actually have to put in the power supply through here, and then screw it in, and then obviously you can put your panel back on afterwards. If you still have the panel on, you're basically just not going to be able to get the power supply off, because once you take off the screws here, you actually just literally have to take out the power supply from here. So it is a bit of a funny design, but you always kind of get that with ITX, I find. So I always say, if you're a first time builder, probably don't go ITX, because there can be issues with ITX in terms of space and in terms of fitting things. And if you've got an ATX case with ATX motherboard, it all just fits in and there's loads of room, and that you never really can have any compatibility issues at all, unless you're talking like 8 I/O pumps, and then maybe there's compatibility issues between maybe like 360 rads and stuff like that. But pretty much anything is going to fit in an ATX case, and it's one of the problems with ITX that you do have. But anyway, moving on. So that's the power supply area, and actually the power supply area, I forgot to say, was it takes a full ATX power supply, which is nice. And I do think you could probably get an SFX here as well, if you maybe obviously get like a 3D printed bracket, but it does take ATX, and that's what I would recommend really. There isn't a lot of space here for cables and what have you, so that's one thing you've got to think about with ITX, but it is what it is. And you know, obviously a modular power supply is going to be your best friend here. You really do need a modular power supply with an ITX case, really. I'd say any ITX case you get, you're going to need modular, really. But yeah, moving on, you can actually fit, I don't know if you can see that from there, but I'll have close-ups. You can actually fit 2 80mm fans on the top here, or like just above your I/O shield on your motherboard. Again, I don't think really many people are going to use that, especially with the big 200mm fan at the front. I don't really think anyone's going to kind of utilise those ports, but they obviously are there. And then coming to the back here, we have like a little clip thing which just holds over the 2 screws, which is where your graphics card will go. So it's a 2 slot only, so obviously if you've got one of those massive GPUs, that's not going to fit. Like a 3 slot GPU, that's not going to fit. Also as well, the length I think's only 270 or something, although I think you can get a little bit, you can maybe get to 300 if you really need to. But it is quite shallow. It's not like for massive graphics cards, I would say. But yeah, it is a fairly shallow sort of area, so it's not like you can fit. Obviously, if you had like a 3080, you probably wouldn't get that in, but anything like a 3060 Ti kind of 2-fan design or anything like that, or even a 3070 2-fan design, is going to fit in fine actually. So not really too much of a problem graphics cards wise to actually fit in. Actually, just before we end, there's actually thumb screws on these little drives. There's like little drive caddy things, and they actually just pull out. I'll just show you that now. So they actually pull out, and you've got your SSD, or so basically you fit your 2.5 SSD into those screws, or you actually got, there's actually rubber grommets as well, and they actually fit into there, and then you can actually screw in your 3.5-inch drive as well. So that's kind of quite nice, because you can just do it outside the case, get all your cables and everything together, and then literally just place the little mount or the little bracket back into its sort of little slot like that. Put your thumb screw in and you're away. So again, I actually think the design of this was really good. You know, when you look at the ITX market currently, I don't know, apart from maybe the Cooler Master NR200, I don't really know if there's that many good cases actually on the market. Maybe the NZXT H1 possibly, but it depends what you like. And I still think one of the issues with ITX is really the big expense of it. Of, you know, you're paying quite a premium for not only the case but also the motherboard, and unless you can obviously get it second-hand motherboard like I've done and fairly cheap, then I kind of think a motherboard around 150 to 200 pounds isn't really worth it unless you're really doing a high-end build and you really absolutely want ITX and that's all you want. But yeah, I do think this is a nice little sort of case, and like I say, I'm excited to do a little build with this. I have built in this before, like I said. I did have a previous system in here, but you know, it's nice to build in again, and nice to reuse a case again, because like I say, there's nothing wrong with this case at all, and it's good to have a new home for my little ITX Ryzen build. So we'll probably be putting a 3050 RTX 3050, my MSI RTX 3050 Ventus X2, I think it is. We'll be putting that in here as well. 16 gigabytes of RAM, so it's all good. So yeah, if you did like this video and you do want to see the next video, then obviously subscribe, and we'll have that next week. And yeah, really, just thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.